Just a second. I have to start the recording. Very important. I'm excited to have Diana with us today. And we're getting some feedback from somebody. Hold on a minute. Diana, do you mind muting yourself for a second?
Okay.
See if it's you. Okay. I don't know what just happened, but that went away. By the way, if you're not speaking, please have your mic off. And you'll see, if it's on, you'll see a little mic icon next to your name. Just make sure that it's off. So anyway, I'm really excited to have Diana Graber here today of Cyberwise. And Diana is going to talk about how she integrated digital citizenship into Journey School and all of the wonderful things that happened there and that she did and experienced with the students. And I actually first met Diana through the National Association for Media Literacy Education, where we met and she wrote this wonderful paper for their Journal of Media Literacy on this very topic, some of the items that she'll be talking about today. Really, really fascinating. I'm so happy to have her here, and she's just doing great work in this area. So, Diana, I'm going to pass over to you, and if I need to chime in for any reason, I will, but otherwise, let's get started.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Kelly. It's such an honor, really, to be here today. And you guys got to see Kelly's picture. Here's my picture on the screen, teaching digital literacy at Journey School. And I love this picture because I think it really speaks to a lot of teachers today trying to teach this topic in schools all across, our country and other countries as well. So ironically, what I'll be doing here today is using tech in a no classroom to share some of my experiences bringing digital literacy to Journey School. And hopefully you can see the Journey School website there. Journey is located in Aliso Viejo, California, and it's a public charter school that's part of the Capistrano Unified School District. A little over a year ago, I asked the administrator at Journey School, Shahir Salsa, who I think is on the call today, if we could convert my daughter's weekly 6th grade civics class into cyber civics, and he was quite brave and agreed to let us do that. So I started by teaching digital citizenship last year using the Common Sense Media curriculum. And this year I'm working on the same class, now in 7th grade, and we've moved on to information and research literacy. And meanwhile, digital literacy has become a permanent part of the entire middle school curriculum at Journey, with 2 other teachers working with the 6th and 8th grades. I'm also, as Kelly mentioned, the co-founder of Cyberwise, and Cyberwise is a learning hub that helps busy adults understand and use digital tools to enhance education. And on our site here, we provide videos, ebooks, articles, and research materials that help parents, educators, and others better understand the digital world and the digital tools that our children are using today. As a quick aside, last week I attended the webinar that Kelly gave here at Common Sense Media, and it was good to be reminded that the average child today spends 53 hours a week using media technology. And even for me, that number just doesn't, it always stops me in my tracks. And so what we do is we try to demystify this world for grown-ups. And we also mail out a daily newspaper via Twitter called the Cyberwise Daily and send out a bi-monthly newsletter that tells about new resources on our site. And we're huge advocates of starting the digital literacy tour with digital citizenship. In a moment, I'm going to show you some actual examples of classroom lessons, but first I wanted to provide a little background. And as Kelly mentioned, a lot of this comes from the paper that she actually helped mentor me on, which is in the Journal of Media Literacy Education. Through working on this paper, there we go. Through working on this paper, I'm going to have to back up here. Sorry, Kelly, can you hear me? There we go. Sorry,
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, my Prezi got away from me, so hopefully you guys can see the confronting the challenges of participatory culture. Okay, great. Sorry, I had to just check in there for a second. Through working on the paper, I actually was introduced to the work of Henry Jenkins at USC, And Dr. Jenkins is probably one of the foremost thought leaders today on the topic of media literacy. And a few years back, he and his team published this white paper about media education in the 21st century. And in the paper, he introduces the term participatory culture. And this basically refers to the media environment we're all now living in. And the reason it's called a participatory culture is because all of these platforms and services like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, many of these really are just a few years old, but they've completely transformed the media environment into something we used to just consume, sort of like a one-way street, into something we actually participate and interact with. And while this is really exciting and offers opportunities for like collaboration, connection, community, learning, and information access, there's also some dangers, and there's things, possible dangers like sexting, plagiarism, identity theft, predators, and cyberbullying. So what Jenkins and his team found is that this new media environment requires new media literacy skills. And in their paper, they identify these skills, and there are things like play, performance, simulation, appropriation, multitasking, judgment, negotiation, visualization, networking, collective intelligence, distributed cognition, and transmedia navigation. If you look at this list carefully, you'll notice that there's not a single technical skill on the list, but rather these are all social and behavioral skills that are really learned best through cooperation and collaboration. And one of the best quotes I've run across that kind of puts this into context comes from Erin Riley at USC, Project Media Literacy. And she says, just putting computers in classrooms doesn't mean they'll be used well. One of our key goals is to stop focusing quite so much on do kids have computers in the classroom and start focusing more on do kids have the basic social skills and cultural competencies so that when they do get computers in their classroom, they can participate fully. And I think this is a really important statement. So one of the things I wanted to do when I completed my work, my thesis, is I wanted to try to implement some of what I've learned in my own backyard. And that turned out to be Journey School. And although one of my daughters had already moved on to public high school, my youngest daughter was entering 6th grade at the time, which is the age research shows that kids' interest and participation with media really spikes and reaches its all-time high. What I haven't explained fully about Journey is that it's a public charter school, and for those of you who may be unfamiliar with what that is, they're basically public schools that any child can attend for free, and they're able to deliver the state standards using the teaching pedagogy outlined in the charter. So in the case of Journey School, for example, it uses Waldorf teaching methods. And Waldorf schools generally don't use any technology at all in the early years. In fact, they often ask families to restrict media use in the home during the week as well. However, there's a lot of aspects of the Waldorf curriculum that have almost a direct parallel to the new media literacy we took a look at a moment ago. For example, they place a heavy emphasis on play, hands-on collaborative activities, dramatic storytelling, and they offer an arts-infused curriculum. So despite their no-tech policy, they're actually practicing many of the new media literacy skills every day. And one thing I really want to emphasize here is that schools like ours who don't have access to technology in the classroom for whatever reason can still use activities like these to build a terrific foundation for new media literacy. But unfortunately, what we find today, particularly here in California with the looming budget cuts and an emphasis on standardized testing, are that things like the arts and music and hands-on collaborative activities are getting squeezed out of the traditional school day at a time when we're really learning how valuable these activities are. So one of the things I really like about the Common Sense Media curriculum is that many of their lessons incorporate interactive, artistic, and collaborative activities. There's something else that Jenkins writes about, which he thinks is critical. Let me see if I can get back. There we go. There's one more skill that Jenkins writes about that's critical for navigating the new digital landscape, and that's ethical thinking. He writes that an important goal of media education should be to encourage young people to become more reflective about the ethical choices they make as participants and communicators and the impact they have on others. And the reason for this is that almost everything we do in cyberspace requires an ethical decision. For example, every time a student creates, shares, interacts, produces, downloads, uploads, or remixes something, he or she is faced with an ethical choice. Do I credit the photographer that picture I just added to my paper? Should I post that unflattering picture on Facebook? And unfortunately, as many young people are learning today the hard way, a bad choice in cyberspace has far-reaching and long-lasting consequences. So the importance of ethical thinking is actually rather a hot topic today in media literacy. For example, the author of Teaching Digital Natives, Mark Prensky, writes that installing ethical behavior should be our #1 concern. And in his book, Jason Oler writes that the new digital environment calls on all of us to develop a personal ethical core that can guide us in areas of experience that are in many ways unfamiliar. And even the U.S. Department of Education, in their new educational technology plan, says that students must be active, creative, knowledgeable, and ethical participants of our globally networked society. So it's really important, I think, to think about how ethical thinking happens in kids. And we have to remind ourselves that ethical thinking requires abstract thinking in order to abstract universal principles governing moral conduct. And what the developmental theorists learned a long time ago, the guys like Piaget, Kohlberg, and Montessori, is that a child's capacity for abstract thinking is actually limited to his or her stage of cognitive development. And they also say that it takes about 12 years to put the cognitive structures in place that actually enable abstract thinking to happen. So I think this is an important consideration today, especially as more and more children under the age of 12 are going online and being faced with ethical decisions they may not be developmentally prepared to navigate. And even though we can try to shield children from the world that they may be unprepared for, a more realistic strategy is probably to both understand this world ourselves and to better prepare them for it, and that's what digital citizenship does. Okay, so I'm going to start with a little bad news. According to some research from a team of researchers at Harvard, they found that few young people actually engage in ethical thinking when they're online. But then I have some good news, is that same team led by Howard Gardner, who many of you may remember from his work on multiple intelligences. He has actually turned his attention recently to the issue of ethical thinking of young people in the digital world. And through his work at the Good Play Project, he's identified 5 areas of ethical concern. And those are participation, identity, privacy, credibility, and authorship ownership. And then the real good news is that research forms the basis for the free online curriculum offered by Common Sense Media that we're going to talk about today. And as I said earlier, this is the curriculum that we're using at Journey School. However, when I started working with the 6th graders last year, because this particular class had such limited exposure to media, at least in school, I actually started with another resource, and that was this book by Dr. Jason Oler called Digital Community, Digital Citizen, which provides a really good overview of digital citizenship. And I like this book because he talks about doing a whole school approach to behavior that sets the entirety of being digitally active with an overall ethical and behavioral concept. And that really spoke to me because it seemed to align with what we're trying to do at Journey School. And his book has a lot of activities to start with, and we did this one first. It's called Technology Connects and Disconnects Us. And in this particular lesson, each group of kids got a picture of some sort of technological invention, like the printing press or the telephone or the microwave oven. And they had to break into small groups and talk about how each tool connects and disconnects us from one another. And then they had to come up with a way that they would have improved the tool had they made it themselves. And then they had to present these findings to their entire class. So I thought this was a nice way for them to understand how each new gadget that comes along changes our culture a little bit, both for better and for worse. So after this lesson, we moved right into the Common Sense Media curriculum. And the way their curriculum works is that each of those issues that we talked about earlier is presented in a unit. For example, the issue of participation becomes a digital life unit. And in this unit, students explore the positive and negative impact of digital media on their lives and communities and define what it means to be a responsible digital citizen. And what I really like about the Common Sense Media curriculum is that they offer a ton of resources. For example, the videos, Kelly and I learned a couple days ago that we can't actually play video here on this resource. So the videos that are in this presentation, I'm going to give you a link to at the very end. But Common Sense offers great videos for both students and parents as part of their resources. The other thing they offer that I found invaluable was reference materials like this, because if you're like me, the terminology is kind of new, so it's nice to bone up on it so that when you're talking to students, you can understand and talk their language and they know what they're talking about, that you're all up on the stuff, so that comes in really handy. One of the units we had a ton of fun with was the second unit, and that was privacy, which they call the Privacy and Digital Footprint Unit. And in this unit, students learned that the internet is a very public place, and therefore they must carefully manage their information and respect the privacy of others online. And for this particular unit, we started with a lesson that's called Choose the Host, and at Journey School we ended up calling it Choose the Spokesperson. And the reason for that is that the class I worked with had just completed a business math block, and they had to create their own business. And sorry about that. The business they created was a pie company, and it was actually really successful. They made and sold a whole bunch of pies around the holidays. And so we told the kids that they were so successful that they needed to hire a spokesman for their pie company. And so they had 3 different applicants. This is one here, Jason. And then after they reviewed the letters they got from all the applicants, we did an online check. So we looked at their online profiles or their digital footprints, per se, to see if there's somebody that we may want to hire. And this is one of the cases where I really wish I could show you the videos, because we have 3 of them here. And the first one is the kids taking a look at the applicants' digital footprints to decide who they wanted to hire. And in the second one, they broke up into small groups, and they had to decide which candidate they would hire based on 2 questions: were they trustworthy, and did they work well with others? And then it was interesting because in every case, the kids decided that based on the candidates' digital footprints, they did not want to hire them. And then what I really loved about this lesson is its 3rd step, and we came back and we took a closer look at the digital profiles, and we discovered that some of the stuff we found online was not entirely accurate, or in this case, we were actually looking at a different person, not the person we thought we were looking at. And so it had these layers of complexity and called on the kids to really use a lot of critical thinking skills. And I thought it was a real terrific lesson. And I hope that if you're interested, you'll take a look at the links, because the video is really, really great as well. In this block, there's also the digital footprint lesson, which is great because it's an artistic lesson, and at Journey School anyway, the kids love this kind of stuff. And so what they did here is they got a blank footprint, and then they were asked to imagine what they wanted their digital footprint to look like in 10 years. And so every child drew their own digital footprint. And it was really heartwarming to see the things that the kids hoped they'd put out in the world in 10 years. And you kind of hope that by making this, footprint, that it will be their guide to help them become who they want to become in the digital world. Let's see if I can move forward here. The next unit is the issue of credibility, which Common Sense calls the Connected Culture unit. And in this unit, the students explore the ethics of online communities, both the negative behaviors to avoid, such as cyberbullying and hurtful behavior, and positive behaviors that support collaboration and constructive relationships. They also learn how to clearly communicate by email. And we played a game here called You Chart It, and this was really fun because it gave the kids a bunch of different scenarios that they could imagine happening online. This one, for example, is about Sam, who takes an embarrassing photo of PJ and posts it online, something that kids do all the time, so that was something that they could relate to. And then what we did is we took some tape and we made this XY axis on the floor of the classroom. And then the children in groups had to take the position of the perpetrator of the action in each case and stand somewhere on the XY axis as though they imagined that the act was intentional and hurtful, or perhaps it was unintentional or helpful. They had to show physically how they thought the perpetrator was thinking. And again, this is another one that I videotaped, and what was interesting here is in every single case, the kids always thought the perpetrator was intentional and hurtful in their actions. And I've played the same game now 3 times with adults, and in every case, the adults think that the kids think they're being unintentional and helpful. So it's interesting because the kids really sort of know what they're doing out there, and meanwhile, their parents think they don't know. So that really begs for more research, I think, but it's an interesting thing to play with kids and to see it, get them inside the heads of others that are making these decisions online. Besides, the Common Sense Media curriculum also has some really terrific units on cyberbullying. Again, a lot of role play and case studies and scenarios that are really fun to do with the kids. And then this is probably one that I actually learned the most from, most mystery transcripts, because basically it takes a look at the forms and norms of communication based on the format we're using. For example, the way we write in an email is so different from how we text and entirely different from a letter. So we talked about when it's appropriate to use things like emoticons or sarcasm for that matter, and what to do when you receive a rude or inappropriate message. And then we played a game where we tried to stump each other with textisms, and I was able to stump the kids with these two, and I wish I could play it with you. And the one that really got them is the last one, which is basically the text equivalent of nodding in agreement. The kids thought that meant mom hugs me, so I thought that was kind of cute. The next unit is the one about identity, which they call the self-expression identity unit. And students show who they are to the online world with avatars, social networking profiles, and posts. The lessons in this unit are designed to help students explore their online versus offline selves. Students learn that the way they present themselves online can affect their relationships, sense of self, and reputation. And this is a really important unit because identity exploration is such normal behavior for kids at this age. So one of the first things we did is play the scene 3 facts, 1 fiction. And the kids, what they did is they broke into groups, and they made a list of 4 interesting facts about themselves. 3 true and 1 false. And I gave you a little example there. And then they had to present these facts to each other, and the kids had to try to decide which was the falsehood. And obviously when you play this lesson face-to-face, it's pretty easy to see which is the false statement. However, hopefully it underscores to the kids that it's a lot easier to present false information about yourself online, as we all know, by looking at this example here. Another thing that we did that they had a lot of fun with is they broke into pairs, and they had to interview each other, do a partner profile, and then take that information and actually create a Facebook page for each other. And I think this was great, especially at an age right before that they're technically allowed to have their own Facebook page, because it helped them really think through what was appropriate and inappropriate to share online. And also, I think it may kind of make their mistakes on a piece of paper before they make it in front of the whole world. And I think that was a really valuable lesson. The last unit in the digital citizenship curriculum that Common Sense offers is the one of authorship ownership, or which they call respecting creative work. And in this one, young people are creating and publishing their own writing, music, videos, and artwork. They live in a world where information is easily available to copy, paste, and remix. The lessons in this unit address students' rights and responsibilities about respecting creative work, as well as explore topics ranging from copyright to fair use. Students reflect on the ethics of using creative work from others, and they are encouraged to celebrate their role as 21st century creative artists. In my other life that I don't really have a lot of time for anymore, I'm actually a film and video producer, so this unit really spoke to me. And I have to say, even working in this field, this is gray and murky territory, folks, because it changes by the minute. And so if you need to bone up on what copyright and fair use and all that stuff means, Common Sense Curriculum offers terrific resource materials on that, and it's really important to stay on top of it because it's really hard to know how fast it's changing. And you can imagine if copyright is confusing for us, it's really almost incomprehensible to kids. And so, they see the internet really as a big smorgasbord that serves as anything for the asking. So one way for kids to really understand creative work is for them to actually create and post something online themselves. And so we did this first lesson, which I love. It's the truth about Happy Birthday. And in it we learned that the Happy Birthday song is actually copyrighted. So this lesson asks the kids to imagine if they're a film producer and they have to make a movie with Happy Birthday in it, but they can't afford to pay the copyright fee to use the actual song, so they have to make up their own song. And so the kids did that, and this again is a video that's so cute. It was great because there were like 5 different groups of kids, and each group made a really different song, and they were super proud of these songs. And it led very well into the next lesson, which was learning about Creative Commons. And in Creative Commons, the kids got to decide what kind of copyright they wanted to have, or what kind of license they wanted to have for their creative work. And what was funny is every single instance, the students chose the most restrictive license possible. So hopefully that will come into their memory someday as they're out there looking at maybe borrowing other people's creative works online. And then I really like this unit because it gives kids a great framework in order for them to assess information that they find online by asking these questions: ask, acknowledge, and add value. And this unit really set us up well for this year. This year, as I mentioned earlier, we're doing research and information literacy, and it's been a lot of fun. We've taken a look at Wikipedia, and we're actually in the middle of creating an article for Wikipedia. We've learned about search engines and how they work and the different kinds of search engines. We've talked about how to evaluate a website to determine if it's credible and what strategies they use to try to capture your attention. And they did this by making websites for each other in class, so they had a lot of artistic time this year as well. So we're about halfway through our 3-year curriculum at Journey School, and as I mentioned earlier, we start with digital citizenship in 6th grade, 7th grade research and information literacy, and 8th grade real media literacy, which is really applying our critical thinking skills to things that we find in the media. And although this is not a curriculum that Common Sense offers yet, there's some great resources out there, and I'm really inspired by the work of Jocelyn at Shaping Youth and Cindy Shube and Faith Welgo and Renee Hopps. So these are just some of the terrific resources that are out there. And I'm kind of wrapping up now, but what I wanted to say is, this is really the world that our kids are living in. And whether we like it or not, according to research that you will find on Common Sense Media, the average child today spends more time with media than they do in school or with their parents. So I really believe that by teaching digital citizenship, we're helping kids to access the best internet filter in the world, and that's the one they carry around every day right between their ears. So what's nice is more and more schools are starting to recognize how important this task is. As I mentioned earlier, unfortunately we couldn't play those videos for you today. But what I've done here is I've given you a place that you can go, and we've posted those videos so that you can access them later. On our website here, we also offer guides to build digital citizenship, both in video and ebook form. And on the second tab on our website, we also have some links to some really good digital citizenship themes and our top 10 list of digital citizenship resources. And honestly, we've looked at just about all of them, and I can say hands down that Common Sense curriculum is definitely recognized as the best. So it's been my really great honor today to be here, and I hope that I can answer some questions, and I hope I've encouraged someone out there to go out and share digital citizenship with their own school in their own backyard. So thanks.
Great.
Are you guys still awake?
Yeah. That was just wonderful. Thank you so much, Diana. I mean, it was just
you're welcome.
Really great to hear how you're not only teaching digital citizenship and using these different resources, but some of the examples of how you customize it for the classroom or for what's going on at the school. And then also just some student examples of student reactions and how it went. I really liked the example where you compared students' responses to the adults on the Chart It lesson, right?
Right. Well, that's why, Kelly and I, we laughed a couple of days ago because the worst thing you can tell a filmmaker is they can't show their films. And so, I had to get over that today. But on that one lesson where they're choosing their own spokesperson, the kids' reactions were so powerful, and for me that was really great. And the best part was at the end when I told them it was just a lesson and we weren't really hiring a host, they were so disappointed. They really became engaged in these lessons, and that was what was really wonderful for me. Is they really, they live it, and hopefully by living it, it stays with them when they come up against these actual scenarios in real life.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's really what speaks to kids is that we really tried to offer them real examples that they can relate to that happen in their everyday lives, and then also we and it seems like, of course, as a filmmaker too, you do too, is value that all the amazing things that we can do with digital technology, and we want to pull that out and bubble that up in kids, and that's creating great digital citizens. So this has been really wonderful, and I do encourage everyone to check out the videos. I mean, they are great. It gives you a taste of what it looks like in the classroom. The students are amazing. So thank you so much for putting those up in a special spot for us. And then I can also send that out. I will also send that out in an email. But at this point, we're opening it up to discussion and questions for Diana. And I guess Diana, did you have somebody here that you wanted to?
Well, I invited Shahir Saltis, who's actually the administrator at my daughter's school, and he really went out on the limb, particularly being a Waldorf administrator. They're not known for being so crazy about technology. So, I feel like in some ways we're kind of breaking new territory here. So maybe he could say a few words from an administrator's perspective on how this has worked out for the school, and it might be helpful for people at other schools to hear that and think how it could relate to them.
Sure. So, basically,
Whoops.
Hi.
Is she here? Are you online?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes. I can hear you. Yes. Kelly, can you?
Yes. My recommendation is turn off your volume, please.
Turn it off?
And if you have headphones, because we get a feedback loop.
Okay, I'll do my best, Kelly. I hope that is. I hope you can hear me all right.
Yes.
What I want to share is just a huge thank you to Common Sense Media and all of the pioneers out there on the cutting edge doing this work. It's so important for us at the site level, and it matters. What you're doing really matters. And at Journey, we're so grateful for Diana because she's really been the champion of this program. And I think, just really briefly, the way I feel is we just, as a school community, feel tremendous empowerment as a result of this, of our program, of our civics, of our new media literacy program. For a long time, we had our heads in the sand, to be honest, and we didn't know how to live into the promise of our media policy. And while things aren't perfect now at all, we're really on the cutting edge of, in the Waldorf movement at least, of addressing this. And the beautiful thing is that we've come full circle, as Diana has shown us, and the ethical thinking capacities that we work so hard to cultivate in the younger grades without technology. This is just the partnership between Diana's program and Common Sense Media has just allowed us to extend the ethical lessons our children learn into cyberspace, and it's just been wonderful. And it's actually connected with two other strands that we have at our school, one being eco-literacy and the other being a compassionate campus program, which we call social literacy. So now at Journey School, we have the 3 L's, social literacy, eco-literacy, and new media literacy. So this program's just been amazing.
All right. Thank you so much. If you wouldn't mind turning your mic off real quick. You just press talk again. Thank you. Sorry about that. This is the one technical glitch of the program, but that was so great to hear you share that about your school, sort of the journey of where you came from start and to finish, and how it's such a integrated part of your curriculum now. Diana, do you want to speak to that a little more?
I'm sorry, I was distracted here because I'm reading some of the notes, which are so interesting. But it has made a big difference. I guess for me, I have like my test tube person, my daughter, who's in the class, and it's funny because I have so much technology here at home, and she comes home, and when she turned 13, and I said, "Okay, you're old enough to have a Facebook page," and she says, I don't want to have one after learning about all the downsides. So I don't know. It's an interesting concept because I think it's so important for kids to learn digital citizenship because on one hand it prepares them, but in another way, you know, it kind of slows them down a little bit because they see the realities of what they put out there and how it can come back at them, you know, if they're not doing things that they've thought through real well.
Definitely. So it looks like we may have a question from Lieberman C. And what you can do if you have a question is ideally you're set up, you want to have headphones or something so that we don't hear the sound coming through because we get a feedback loop. So Lieberman C, if you'd like to ask a question, you can press talk. Or not. We do have some questions coming in through the chat box. And, oh, Lieberman C. Okay, so you're asking how are parents responding to the curriculum? And do they like what their kids are learning and what are they learning from their kids? So Diana, would you mind responding?
Well, I think the parents have been really positive about it. I made a presentation at Journey School a few weeks ago, and it was very heartwarming, the response I got from the parents because, well, here's the biggest thing I get when I tell parents about this. They come to me and they say, you know what, I need these lessons. I heard that so many times that was really the impetus that had us start Cyberwise because we thought, gosh, kids need these lessons, but the people who really need these lessons are their parents and their educators. Because unless we understand it, unless we understand the value of digital citizenship, you know, it's never going to trickle down to the kids. Because frankly, schools don't have time to give up a math class or a science class to do this unless the parents are saying, hey, I want this. So it's really important to start with the adults. And generally the adults are an easy sell. Once you get them, give me 5 minutes. They'll love this program, you know.
Yes, definitely. And I also want to. Is somebody trying to talk? Okay, I will keep going. I want to mention explicitly that with every lesson in our curriculum, we offer parent resources. So we offer tip sheets with every lesson, like a tip sheet that students can take home to parents or that can be distributed. And quite often, we also have videos. So common sense, we really believe it takes a village to address digital citizenship, and parents have to be brought into the fold. They have to be brought into the loop. And, you know, the once-a-year parent night, that's not enough. I mean, unfortunately, you have to do more. And parents are, really hungry for this kind of information, too, because they're dealing with it at home. And as you know, the lines between home and school are blurred. Those boundaries are blurred. So, I definitely think it's very difficult to address this topic without bringing parents into the mix. Let's see. Carla asked, Diana, can you review the 5 areas that need to be addressed that you mentioned earlier?
Sure. Hi, Carla. They are participation, credibility, privacy, authorship, ownership. What am I forgetting, Kelly? I know I've left one out.
They're similar. So let me explain a little bit. So basically, I love that Diana set up kind of how our curriculum was developed. We worked with Dr. Howard Gardner and the Good Play Project at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. They did this huge study on digital ethics and young people. And the 5 areas that they found are bubbling up as ethical issues. We used it wasn't a direct roadmap, but pretty close to the framework for our curriculum. So the 5 areas are digital life, which is sort of like an introduction to thinking about how digital media, the role that it plays in your life, how much media do you use, what is a citizen, introducing the citizenship concept. There's privacy and digital footprint. So this is a really hot topic now, especially when we're worried about kids creating digital footprints and making sure what they're sharing and what they're creating is positive, and that things are persistent online and it's hard to erase. There's no delete button on the internet. There's connected culture. That unit addresses cyberbullying, if you're interested in that, and then also just how we build positive culture in online communities. There's a unit on self-expression and identity. Diana mentioned that, especially in middle school, kids are starting to explore with their identity. Part of this exploration happens online, so it's sort of asking kids to start thinking about that. And then respecting creative work is really the unit on copyright and fair use. So I hope that helps, but those cover the 5 digital citizenship units. And then Diana also mentioned a couple other, like the research and information literacy unit. So although the digital citizenship is the heart of our curriculum, we also have a unit on safety and security, a topic area on safety and security, and then also research and information literacy, which is more about evaluating websites and credibility and trustworthiness, and then effective online searching. So I hope that's helpful for laying it out there. We have a question from Sean. How do we put teachers on the cutting edge of this stuff? And this was from a little bit earlier. Teachers generally freak out about the idea of curriculum around cyber safety and delivery of content.
I've been looking.
Diana, would you like to?
I've been staring at that question because that's the $1 million question, isn't it? Can you hear me?
I would love to tackle that one for a moment after Diana.
I just think, teachers are so busy, and they have so many demands on their time, and they have things, especially in the public school system, they have to do in order to prepare the children to take their tests every year. And I've got a little feedback. Am I sounding okay? You guys still have me?
Yes.
Okay, I think.
Shahir, do you want to speak to that?
Well, for us, what made the difference was, so Diana was at Journey from the ground floor as one of the pioneers of the school 12 years ago, and so she really understood the mission of the school, which is to bring Waldorf education into the public sector, so kids that wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it have access. And because she had established relationships, when together this idea was developed to bring cyber civics into the master schedule, that relationship that she and other key go-to people had developed with our faculty, the trust, and then because administration, we sort of quantified how much time would we save in discipline or phone calls with parents and all that other stuff if we were proactive and invested in a mission-aligned approach to bringing cyber civics to Journey. How much time would that save? And by the way, we're not spending any money on it. There's no financial impact because we have this champion, Diana, but that's the biggest obstacle because we have to build a sustainable way to keeping it in the master schedule. But I would say the most essential piece for us was this we went very slow. It took us a couple of years to roll out with it, and we were gradual in our approach, and we talked to the teachers about how this builds community and weaves the social fabric into their class in a beautiful way, and really how it integrates all the disciplines, whether it's listening or speaking or writing or research. So if you really methodically kind of lay out the pros, it's hard to argue against it. And that's what we found with our teachers. Yeah.
I think that's great. I mean, I really like Shahir. If you don't mind turning off your mic real quick.
Yes.
And I don't mean to cut you off. It's just the feedback.
No, I'm done. Yeah.
I really liked how you spoke to the fact of building a positive community at your school. I think, you know, that part of this is school culture and school climate, and it seems like somebody might have a mic on and we're getting feedback from their sound. Would that be, if that's you, please turn off your mic. Okay. It seems like what we're noticing is successful programs for digital citizenship just across the board have also successfully built positive school climate around the issues, and a climate where students, for instance, with cyberbullying, they're saying, you know what, we're not going to tolerate this. We're going to take action, and we're going to be upstanders and, you know, care for each other and stand up for each other. And it's really where the students take ownership in building the school culture. So it sort of bubbles up from the students, and I don't know. I mean, Diana, maybe you could speak to that. It seems like that's really happened at Journey School. How have the students been involved in sort of creating this positive culture around digital citizenship?
Well, you know, the kids are really excited about it because, I mean, it's a really fun hour that we spend together. The lessons are interactive, they're artistic, they're collaborative. So not only are they fun lessons, but they're lessons that hopefully leave an impact. So they've really bought into it. Plus, the kids know how much time they spend with media. I mean, that was one of the first things we did this year, is we did an assessment on, you know, how many hours a week in the summer did you spend with media, and they know that it's a huge part of their life. So, you know, the kids are completely bought in. I'm still stuck back on that question, is how we get the teachers bought in. And Shahir brought up a good point. You know, it's slow going because teachers are busy, and you do have to have an advocate in your school that's willing to try to make it happen. And it's not easy, but you have to try to find a place in the school day. And I think he answered the question best by saying, you know, think about the time it's going to save you in behavior issues, because there's always going to be, you know, the mean Facebooking or the text or the, you know, on. And if you can nip that stuff in the bud, you lose time for everything. So I think that maybe is a big sales piece for the teachers.
I think just to add one piece to what Diana shared, for us, teaching students how to be ethical and how to be the sort of citizens that we need in our community and in our country, that is part of the curriculum. So I think it's having the courage to stand for a vision for schooling that really brings this forth, this idea of balance forth. And I think that was another important decision that we made as a community, was to stand up for our values.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's a really powerful statement, and sort of speaks to you know, the values around Journey School too, and how you've been able to create this kind of community and climate. I mean, we could stick to that question about how do teachers fit this into their day, and I mean, one of the things that we recommend is integration and not add-on, you know, but this really depends on the school and what they're able to do. But we find that there's so many opportunities to integrate digital citizenship into social studies topics, English language arts. We even have math teachers doing things, and some science teachers doing things. So, you know, there seems to be a lot of opportunities to integrate into the existing curriculum, and you, Diana, and Shir here spoke to that. But you know, some schools, they can only do it as an add-on, or in their, you know, homeroom class, or in their you know, character education class that's like an add-on. And if that's the case, then that's fine. It has to fit somewhere. And I'm finding, you know, I guess teachers are finding these topics more and more valuable to be able to address, not only for a preventative education standpoint, but just as a 21st century skill into developing great digital citizens.
I think that's a great point, Kelly.
Yep.
I think that's a great point, and I just want to say that, you know, parents have a voice here too, because in so many instances, if the parents are up to speed and they start understanding this stuff, they can be a huge advocate for this in their own backyard. Because I think a lot of times the schools will listen if enough parents are saying, look, can we do this maybe as an after-school activity, or can you integrate it? You know, I know at my daughter's public high school, they do a whole semester of computer work, and it would be so easy to bring this in as a day here or a day there. But, you know, parents have to remember that we have a voice in our children's education and to use that voice.
I think that's really important to share. And also, you know, there's room for parent education here too. So parents not only have a voice, but they, you know, have things to learn too. And it doesn't have to be. It can be a lot of fun, especially because kids love teaching parents all about digital media and technology. So at this point, does anybody have any more questions? You could chat in the chat box, or you could raise your hand if you'd like to use your mic. I'll just wait a little bit here. This is great. Diana, one thing is I'd like to know a little bit about Cyberwise and kind of what you know, what you do, what Cyberwise does, and what's kind of on your radar for the future.
Well, you know, I think our little slogan up there says it all. We really think that no grown-ups should be left behind. And in doing this work with kids, like I mentioned, when I talk to their parents, they always say, gosh, I need those lessons and tell me more. Where do I learn this stuff? And it just made me realize that the parents are being left behind. And, you know, the world that our kids are so natural in and they take to like ducks to water, for us it's really new. And, you know, a lot of adults barely know how to text or what an app is on their phone. And I think it's really incumbent upon us to immerse ourselves in that world so we can be better role models for our kids. And that's really what Cyberwise does between the ebooks and the videos and the research materials on our site. Sort of coming up next for us is we're going to start what we call a badging system on our site, where people can start going through and progressing through our lessons sequentially. And just like we do with kids, we start with digital citizenship with adults because for us it's just as important. And once we lay that groundwork, we have lessons on how to use Twitter, how to use a lot of the tools that our kids use, like Blogster and Prezi, Slide Rocket, different tools like that. And we'll start offering badges for both adults and teachers so that they can come away and show that they've actually gained something, and perhaps it'll help them become an advocate or a teacher of digital citizenship in their own school. So we have a lot of work ahead, but we're really looking forward to it, and keep you posted.
Great, that's awesome. I know there's a lot of stuff going on around badging. But it's more around the student badging conversation, so I really look forward to see what you're doing with badging for adults. And just, you know, I think, personally, I think that's such a missing link. It's just teaching sort of these basics to parents. So for instance, we give parent presentations every so often, and I have to remember that parents are really at such different places in terms of you know, where they're at with technology. So I was talking about tagging, you know, tagging photos on Facebook and tagging videos and so forth. And then I, you know, had a question from a parent saying, what is tagging? And it really reminded me that I just assumed that we were all on the same page, and parents are really at such different places. And you know, in teaching digital citizenship and with students, we have to be cognizant of that too.
You know, the kids remind me that every day. Every time I do a lesson, they said, you know, can you talk to my mom about this? And the good one was when we did a lesson about posting inappropriate stuff on Facebook, And the kids started telling me stories of the pictures their parents put of them on Facebook that just embarrassed them. And I was chuckling to myself thinking, these kids are better digital citizens than we are. So we have a lot to learn, all of us. It's a world we didn't grow up in, so we have a lot of catching up to do.
Yes, definitely. But we can do it. We can do it.
Yes, we can.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Diana, for being a guest today on today's webinar. And I encourage everybody again to visit cyberwise.org and look at the videos that she was talking about that unfortunately we're not able to show, but she's featured on her site, videos showcasing what she was talking about today. And then also you can visit us at, and I think we put a lot of links in the chat box, but it's commonsensemedia.org/educators. I'll put it in the chat box here. Just to access the curriculum, and again, since we're a nonprofit, it's available at no cost to you. Okay, so thanks to Kelly who put up the link. And for those of you on the webinar, we are recording this, and we're going to archive it for any of those people you want to share it with who would like to watch it again. It'll be archived and recorded. So thanks again, Diana, and I encourage you to also check out our upcoming webinars in the next few months, and we can share that link to you in the chat box. And thank you so much to Journey School as well. And
thank you, Kelly. It was my pleasure.
Onward and upward.
Thank you.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
great.
everybody.
Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.